All right. Greetings, fellow book lovers. Welcome back to Colin's Corner for episode number 4 of Books and Basketball. And with me today, I have a longtime virtual friend via Discord servers around the BookTube Fantasy Circle, and that would be RJ from the channel. I think your channel name right now is RJ Tries to Read.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Oh, man.
yeah, yeah. I've changed it three times. It used to be it used to be just my real name, and then I changed it to RJ Reads, and then I changed it to RJ Tries to Read because I think RJ Tries to Read is very, very fitting for me. Um, because I do try to read. I feel a lot, but we try. We at least make the effort, you know.
When you changed your name to that, I was laughing so hard because it's so incredibly relatable.
It is, yeah, yeah.
Oh, man.
I just thought of it one day. It was like this is fitting. So I'll
I
just
love
stick
it.
it. I'll just change it to that. It's it's hilarious.
So, yeah,
I love
we
it.
have, uh we have known each other, again, virtually now for,
hmm
what is it, like, over 3 years, I think we've been chatting probably in Jimmy. How long have you been in Jimmy's Discord?
Um, I've been in Jimmy's Discord from pretty much the beginning. Um, I was in it like within I think a few days of him creating it. So like it used to be. I remember it being very, very small. So it used to be just like me and Amanda, Shad, Pat, Stuart, all those guys. We were sort of the original ones. And then just seeing the pe people constantly coming in and just building on the community has been, has been really good. I really love Jimmy's Discord. It's my favorite place to talk about books other than the Grimoire. Um, it's because it's so tight knit and everyone's just so close. I love it. I really, really do.
Yeah, same here. It was the first book Discord that I joined, and then I joined Mike's, but like you said, it's so close knit, and I feel like I genuinely can call many people from that Discord server my friends because I've chatted for
hmm
so long with so many of the people there, and a lot of them kind of flow over into other Discords as well. So it's nice to see people throughout the community interacting. But
hmm Yeah, for
But yeah,
sure.
we have known each other for a while, and I think this will be a slightly interesting episode because we get to commiserate as we have over the years about being Chicago Bulls fans.
Yeah, it's not fun. Uh, Recently, it's not been fun, but um, I keep telling myself when the Bulls lose, I'm like, we don't have Jim Boylan. This is not Jim Boylan era Bulls. It could be far, far worse than this. So I'm trying to keep the optimism up, you know.
It's tough because you want to be grateful for what you have because it's
hmm
slightly better than what we had with the Boylan era, but it's still like we're cheering for being a very low tier team, like teams that just people didn't even pencil us in as a win on their schedule. They penned us in as a win on their schedule under Boylan.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, we're mid tier. We are
hmm
very mid tier. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm
for
sure we'll
sure.
get into that.
Yeah.
We have Dan here. Well, Dan will be cooking dinner for the Gremlins, so he will catch us on the rerun. Good to see you, Dan. We also have Rogier here. Um, how you doing, Rogier? Thank you for stopping in. So let's kick us off with the pregame. So I sent you the framework. You'll have a general idea of what's coming down the chute here, but
hmm
what are you reading right now? I don't actually know.
so I'm
Or
reading
trying to read rather.
trying to read. So the last like couple of months have been like rough. Like I haven't finished anything since it feels like November for some reason. I don't know why. I just I've been starting stuff and I just can't get into the rhythm of things. So this is what we're going with at the moment to see if we can sort of break that and change things. So first off, I'm reading this. So this is The Wake and Fire by Anthony Ryan. So this is the first book in his Draconius Memoria series. It's been described as Dragon Punk. So what that means is it's basically this like Victorian sort of 19th century technology kind of era, and it's basically it has a magic system that revolves around certain types of dragon blood will give you certain abilities. So it's kind of like Mistborn, just instead of metals, dragon with dragon's blood. It's really cool. Like, it is really really cool. What I like about sorry, what I really like about Anthony Ryan is he's
Oh, RJ seems to
um,
have. You're back. You froze for a
am I
second there.
back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Right. Dracona, in case I break again, Draconis Memoria, good. Waking Fire, good. It's fun. It's fun as fuck. And I am also reading Red Rising for the
Ooh.
third time. Um, so yeah, so this is the third time I've read Red Rising in like less than a year. Um,
I will be starting that this year.
nice. Yeah.
I've never read it before.
Um, mhm. Yeah, it's so much fun. Like I love reading that first trilogy is just it's a blast. And then the second series, starting with Dark or with Iron Gold and Dark Age and Lightbringer, it just goes to another level for me. Like Lightbringer is that and Dark Age were my favorite books of last year. Like I couldn't separate between them. Like they were so good, you know. Um, so yeah, um, I
Now,
love Red Rising.
on your first read through, I know a lot of
Hmm.
people are kind of iffy about book one. Did you have that
Hmm.
experience, or were you in from the get go?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So I was kind of iffy on book one. I had tried the first book all the way back in like 2018. I
Oh
don't
wow.
know. I think Iron Gold might have been just coming out, so it was a long time ago, and I couldn't really get into it. And then I tried a couple of other times, and I couldn't get into it. And then last year, I just decided, you know what, I'll push through and get to Golden Sun to see, if I could get into the series, and then Golden Sun sort of, it sold me on it, especially the ending. If you've heard anything about Golden Sun, the ending is really it earns its infamy,
Okay.
and Morning Star is just fantastic. I'd say it's even better than than Golden Sun, and then the rest the rest is history. It's fantastic from there on for me anyway. Um,
That's exciting. I haven't heard anybody besides one person, and that was
mhm,
Jake from the Bookish Drummer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's the only
mhm.
person I know of that read into the Red Rising series and didn't love it. Everybody else seems to, once they get past at least the first couple books, seem like they're bought in. So I'll be very interested to see where I end up falling once I get into the first book.
Yeah, I would say, um, yeah, I've heard people falling off sort of once you finish that first trilogy and you get to Iron Gold, because Iron Gold, it's instead of it being from just one POV, it's from multiple POVs, and it opens up the world like a lot. So, and I can see people not digging that if you're just solely interested in Darrow, the main
Okay.
the main character. Um, so I can see where people would drop off, and it does get significantly darker as the series goes on. Like I know a lot of people call the first book YA, and it is kind of, it has YA themes. It's sort of YA, but not really, you know. But
Yeah.
it does get darker as the books go on. Like the ending of book two is quite dark.
All right.
And then I
Hey,
heard,
I'm into
and then
dark.
yeah, and then book five, I heard it was the darkest thing that people um ever read, or one of the darkest books that anyone's ever read.
Wow.
Um, and I thought, I've read Aspect Ember by R. Scott Baker. Nothing can get darker than that because that shit's like dark. Um, but like it's not, but it is dark. Like I was like, oh shit, we're going to some places here. This,
Okay.
you might not want to go down if you're, if you're not into that, you know.
Good to know. Good to know. I
Mm,
tend to do pretty well at compartmentalizing fiction from reality, but I've not read anything like Baker or this yet. So
hmm
I'm reading Malazan, and Steven Erickson likes to hurt feelings, and I'm towards the tail end of the Realm of the Outerlings, where Hobb loves to also hurt some feelings. So I'm pretty used to being hurt and losing
Yeah,
characters and whatnot.
yeah. Hob
Um,
Hob hits the feels for sure. Yeah.
Hello, Derek. How are you doing tonight? Tonight, if it is tonight for you, we got Usman here. Thank you, thank you. Got my Kobe White jersey on. He had 7 turnovers
Nice.
last night. And Britain, how you doing, Britain? Thanks for stopping in, guys. We are gonna push forward. We've warmed up. We're gonna get into the first quarter here. So the first quarter, for those of you that are uninitiated, we will go over a couple different things. But first of which, we always start with books. So, what made you fall in love with books? What made you fall in love with reading? You can take this however you want. You can go all the way back to when there was little RJ, or when you refound reading, or however you want to answer it. I leave it open to the
Mhm.
guest.
Okay. So for me, for most of my childhood, I would say I've fallen in and out of reading. I had spells where I would read a bit and then not read for a while. Um, like I'm what 26 now, so like the big series for me was Harry Potter. Like I grew up with that. Like more so the films and the books, but I did love the books as for what they were. Like I remember getting like Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows, like day one, and going to the shop and getting those books. And then I sort of fell out of love of reading when I was about 9 or 10, because that's when I really got into uh, football. I'm a big football fan as well as a basketball fan. Um, so I got really into that, and then I picked up reading again when I would say about 13, about 12 or 13. And my cousin, who I basically grew up with, she was a very big reader, and she introduced me to this series called The Hunger Games.
Ooh,
And I read those, and I really enjoyed them. I think I'd read them before the films had come out. Um, so I was obsessed with that series, and then um, I read uh, what was it? Have you ever heard of the series called The Maze Runner by James Dashner?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I read those. My mom had got me the first book just randomly. She was like, "I think you'll like this." And I was like, I'll give it a shot," and I really enjoyed it. Um, I would say that's a really, if anyone's looking to read YA and you haven't read Maze Runner, I think that's some pretty good YA. Like it's very solid. Um, Especially book two, which is the Scorch Trials, is. a really, really good series, or a really good middle book. Sorry. Um, so I read those and then fell out of love with it again, and then picked it back up sort of around COVID when COVID hit. Um, for some reason, I can't tell you why, I was just like, I liked fantasy and I liked stuff that was fantastical. Surely there's books like that for adults, right? So I I went on YouTube and I found Daniel Green and I got a bunch of recommendations and I decided to start with Mistborn and that was it. And I pretty much
Awesome.
haven't stopped reading since. So
So we had a similar reignition of our reading journeys because COVID is what I mean. I feel like that happened with a lot of people and different hobbies across the board. Just people were stuck inside and needed something to do, and that's about the time that I refound reading and implemented it into my schedule again as an adult, and kind of never looked back. I mean, like you said, there's little bouts where I'll maybe be burnt out a bit or not read quite as much, but it's pretty much part of my daily schedule now. Like I don't feel right if I didn't read anything in a day, if that makes sense.
hmm yeah, I kind of feel the same. Like if I've not read, like like if there's a day where I'm not reading, I'm like, damn it, I really should have read something today, but I didn't, and that's it's happening more for me like the past like couple of weeks. Um, but I feel like I'm trying to get into the rhythm again. I feel like if I can get that momentum going again, like I can just um, I can just go ahead and I'll be back on track, you know. Um, so
We have Jake here. She says, "Sup? We here to talk about if being 34 feet tall makes dunking hard for RJ because he has to bend over so much." How tall are you?
I'm 6'4", so
He's 6'4".
you
Okay.
know, yeah. So, but so this was interesting. This is an interesting story. Um, so you know Pat from Jimmy's Discord.
Yes, Pat's
Yeah.
Mythos.
hmm
Yeah.
So I met Pat in June. He came over to Ireland, and so I got to meet him, and he was shocked that I was actually tall. Like he thought I was just like medium, like sort of average height, because the joke in Jimmy's Discord is always I'm 34 feet tall. But he just thought I was like normal height. It's like, no, I actually am tall. We just exaggerate. We just exaggerate it even more,
That
you
is
know?
funny.
So,
That's really cool that
hmm
you got to meet him. I remember him going to
yeah.
Ireland.
hmm Yeah, so I got to meet him and I got to meet Carlos and Yolanda as well.
Oh wow.
So that was cool. Yeah.
So I'm so sorry you had to meet Carlos.
Look, he's to me he's such a lad from Dublin. Anyone who's from Ireland will know what I'm on about when I say Carlos is just a lad from Dublin. Like he's hilarious. He's so funny.
I'm only teasing. We love Carlos.
We do,
Um,
yeah.
Hello, Drew. How are you? It's all good. This is a bit earlier if you guys haven't used
hmm
context clues and figured out yet that RJ is in Ireland. So
Yeah.
he's working on a little bit of a different time zone, but we figured out a time that would
hmm
work for both of us. Thank you for stopping by, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
Jake's accusing you of lying.
hmm Yeah. Is the funny elements that um talks about the giants from Game of Thrones is that I live where most of that was filmed. Like most of it was filmed here.
Oh,
So
wow. I
like
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So I live very close to a lot of the sets. So I think basically anything that wasn't filmed beyond the wall and then King's Landing, pretty much everything else was filmed here. Um,
That's awesome.
so yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, there's a bunch of like tourist sites and all that you can see. You can see the sets like the
Yeah.
Dark Hedges. The Dark Hedges, that's the King's Road. That's not all that far from me.
Wow. Okay.
Um, it's like a bunch of stuff. I have like a bunch of stories that I could tell from like stuff that happened. Um, but I think we'll save those for another time. Some of them I can't tell on stream.
Oh,
Um,
really? That's
yeah,
RJ.
yeah.
RJ's got the tea.
Um, yeah.
I heard
The
RJ.
funny,
So were you an extra?
no, I wasn't.
Were you
My
were
bet,
you approached?
or I wasn't approached. No, one of my friends from school was in the show. He was in the Battle of the Bastards.
No
So he
way.
was.
That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. It
You
was.
do have some
It was pretty good.
stories.
Hmm. Yeah. So that makes. How do you tell I'm Irish? I tell stories all the time. Um, that's a thing we do a lot of. So, but he had the long hair and the beard, so like he was perfect for like to be a wildling. So he was on set and he got to meet Liam Cunningham, who plays Davos. So got
Oh,
to meet
no way.
him, and yeah, we got to meet a bunch of them. And then I have another. This is another story. I'll tell this quickly. I have another friend whose dad worked on set. Uh, he did catering, and so he got to meet like a bunch of the cast. So he'd be walking around, and there would be Peter Dinklage, you know,
Huh.
and got to talk to him like, and you're just like, damn, you know,
That is
I
so
was
cool.
I was jealous. Also, I got spoiled on season 8 a year and a half before it aired.
No way.
Yeah,
So you just had to
yeah,
sit there
some
with that
stuff.
information.
Yeah, some stuff. Not everything, but there were
Okay.
a few I didn't know. I didn't know a few things. Yeah,
Were you mad?
that were gonna happen. Eh, because they were sort of they were a bit. Some of them were a bit vague, so
Okay.
I didn't know what way I was gonna fall on it. But I feel fine on season 8. It's the weakest season by far, but I didn't like outright hate it
Okay.
um, as much as other people did, and I can see why they hated it. Like, but I feel, I felt
Um,
okay about it.
Drew says, Colin, are you a sneakerhead? Trying to zoom in, see if I can tell what's behind you. So, yes, I'm sure you guys have noticed I'm not in Colin's corner where I normally film. My wife was working from home today. So I brought the corner into my bedroom. I would not consider myself a sneakerhead. Both of those shoes that you can see, the Nikes right there, I got
Oh yeah,
it
yeah, I
at
can see that.
Kohl's, and then the white ones I just got for Christmas. My mom got them for me. So
Nice.
I'm not a sneakerhead,
Yeah.
but I do like to have a
Mm-hmm.
few nice pairs of sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, like I was like, what the fuck's a sneakerhead? I was like, is this some sort of American thing that I don't understand? But I was like, oh yeah, you call
uh,
shoes like sneakers or trainers. Yeah.
you should you should have had your friend's dad steal the Starbucks cup. I remember seeing the picture of that. That was hilarious.
Should have, should have, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I wouldn't be surprised if he was involved with that, to be honest, in some way.
oh
I
man.
I don't I don't know if he did or not, but um
So we're gonna
yeah.
move on to the second half of the first quarter, and this has kind of been
Mhm.
something I've been interested to ask you. So, what made you fall in love with basketball? Have you always been a fan? And being from Ireland, has it is it difficult for you to access games? Like, how do you watch games?
Okay, so I got into basketball. So first of all, I played basketball in school a little bit. So before I was into like the NBA and stuff like that, like we would play it on like at school, you know. And then we decided to form a team. and because I was the tallest guy in the school, basically. I think at one point I was the tallest person in the school, and they were like, "You have to be on on the basketball team." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I guess I'll try it. I guess I'll try out for it." And I did, and then we found out that um, I am I'm not only the tallest player on the team, I was also the best 3-point shooter on the team.
Wow.
So I was like, I was not very good like at the rim. Like layups were a bit difficult for me for some reason. I don't know why. But mid rangers and like 3-pointers, I could hit quite
That's
easily.
awesome.
So I was like this weird sort of player. Um, so we played another school, and they eventually had to like. This sounds a lot like bragging, but this is 100% true. They had to double team me like a lot. Like so, I would have guys open, and I would like, and then I would just like pass the ball because I could just throw it over their heads. So I just went threw it over them because they were quite small.
So you were
But it was
Jokic
just
before Jokic, basically.
yeah, essentially yeah.
You popularized
But that was
it,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
then I really liked I started really liking basketball and I'm like I'm gonna start following the NBA because I knew like over here like if someone said like people know who like Michael Jordan is like they would know the name like if you ask someone who's LeBron James they would know who they are. They wouldn't know anything beyond that they play basketball. That's about as much as they would know. um, but I got NBA 2K13 I think at the time,
Oh wow.
um, and I played it, and then I was like, what team am I going to support? I'll just choose randomly. Like, so I think I pushed the controller to the side, and it just spun round, and I'm like, whatever team it lands on, that's the team I'll support, and it was just so happened to be the Bulls. Um,
Wow.
so
That's
yeah,
an amazing
so
origin story for a fan. I love that.
yeah, yeah. Um, so to the second part of the question, how do I access games? So we have the NBA Pass here. So we pay, I think you can pay like £20 a month, and you can get every game.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so you can, yeah. So it's pretty easy to access. You know, if you pay that £20, you just get everything, and it's pretty good.
That's not bad
That's
at
why I
all.
would watch. Yeah, it's pretty good. So I usually watch. I try to watch the at least the condensed highlights, if not the full game,
Yeah.
because most of the games happen when I'm in bed, so
Yeah.
I can't watch a lot of the games live. But I do try and keep up, you know, with what's happening. Um, so yeah, and I'm glad that that I chose like randomly because if I had thought about it and I had chose a different like if I had chose by like history or whatever, I would have chose a different team. Um,
Huh.
so if I hadn't have done that and I had researched it and I wasn't sure what team I was for, I would 100% have been a Mavericks fan.
Really?
100%. Yeah,
Wow.
because
That would have been
my
okay.
favorite
They're in
player
the
of all.
West.
Yeah. Um, so like my so this is a bit of a spoiler to the halftime for the Mount Rushmore. My favorite player of all time is Dirk Nowitzki. Like I love Dirk. Like he's just I remember watching him and just being like he's brilliant. Like just so good. Like
He ran through a lot of people on that championship run too.
he did. Yeah. Yeah. Um Sorry, I just seen the comment from Jake. RJ basically described himself as Dirk in terms of playstyle. Yeah, I couldn't do like the fadeaway. I couldn't do that. Um, but yeah, I
Uh,
could I could do a lot.
that's funny.
I
Hey,
don't know
he
if it's
he
because. I don't know if
He
it's
was
because
go ahead.
um, oh, sorry. I don't know if it's because I don't know. I'm not good at basketball. I think I'm below average. I just had the height advantage, so I looked a bit better than I actually was. So,
Oh man, that's funny. All right, well, we're gonna shift into the second quarter here, and this is the state of the game discussion. So,
mhm,
uh, we kind of touched a little bit on this, but again, we'll start with
mhm.
books. So, are you happy with what you're reading right now? Are you happy with the industry, the genre that you and I like to read, fantasy, science fiction, and um, where are you? Where are you right now? What's the state of your
um,
reading game?
yeah. So I think I mentioned before. Yeah, this is probably the biggest reading slump I've ever had. Like, I think it is because of I've had a lot going on. Like I've moved house, um, and then my job was made permanent, so I had to like interview for my job again to get like a permanent role. Um, and then I had mental health stuff going on in like September, October. So I think that contributed to it. But I do feel like I'm starting to gain momentum a bit. It's just it is taking a bit of time, and I'm just letting it sort of. I'm not trying to force it. I'm just trying to have it happen naturally. Just like we'll get into the swing of things again you know, once it's time, we'll get there. Um, in terms of sort of the state of fantasy, um, I'm really like I've read pretty much nothing but fantasy for the last coming up 4 years. Like I would say it's been 95% fantasy. Um, but I think the genre as a whole I genuinely think we are in the golden age of fantasy. Just with the sheer amount of stuff that's coming out and just, not just in traditional publishing, but self-publishing is just, it's boomed in the last couple of years, and we're just seeing so many unique sort of stories coming out, and it's just I don't think it's never been a better time, to be a fantasy fan, than now,
Yeah,
you know. And
I
then
agree with you because
you,
I think about all the different fantasy
Mhm,
series that I'm reading right now, and I've got a different flavor like around every corner. With Dresden, I'm still reading A Song of Ice and Fire. Like you said, I've got Philip
mhm,
Chase and Von Roycroft. I'm reading both of their series, and Realm of the Elderlings. They've all got a different feel, but they're
mhm.
still fantasy, and I think that's a lot of fun to have that much variety in one genre.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I mentioned earlier about Draconis Memoria, The Waking Fire, I think if people are looking for a fantasy story that's not, if you're not looking for something that's really out there, like that's not like it's not gonna like break the wheel. It's not gonna, change fantasy. But it's if you're looking for a unique kind of setting, and it's something a bit different, I think Draconis Memoria is, a good way to go. There's so many of those kind of series like Draconis Memoria. Nobody talks about it. Like when people talk about Anthony Ryan, they talk about a Blood Song and the Raven Shadow trilogy and his newest trilogy that's out, Covenants of Steel. You know, they talk about those series, but for some reason they don't talk about this one. And I think it's just I like trying to find those sort of series that nobody talks about but sounds interesting. You think, why is nobody talking about this? You read it and you're like, I could maybe bring this to the forefront a bit more. Um, but sometimes you read it and you're like, oh, this is in sort of the shadows for a reason. Maybe I shouldn't have read this, um, but I love it when you do find that series that like nobody's talking about, and you're like, I can tell people about it, and you know, it's it's a good feeling, you know.
Yeah, it is, and it's tough being, you know, not even just a content creator, but just a consumer of booktube, because you know we like to go into things trying to not have any preconceived notion, but it's almost impossible to do that with some of these series that blow up. And
Hmm.
Greenbone Saga was one of them, and there Ryan Cahill is another one that's kind of blowing up right now. And
Hmm.
it's literally, if you consume this content, it's impossible to not go into it judging it in some way, positively, negatively. And when you find a series like the Draconis series, I'm sure it feels good to be able to just formulate your own kind of natural opinions without being
Hmm.
influenced by anything that you've seen or read or watched so far.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like those series, like when you see a review of it, like I know people try not to let, other talk, from other booktubers or other people, affect what they're gonna say. But I think, like it is gonna affect you in some way, even if you don't mean it, you know, and that's fine, that's perfectly okay, you know. Um, and that's why I try to avoid the series that are like really popular. I'm not a hipster, but I try to let
Uh-huh.
the let it sort of calm down a bit more. So like Greenbone, I've sort of had that sitting and I'm just letting that sort of die down a bit. I think this year will be the year that I finally read Greenbone. Um, and I did that for Warlord Chronicles as well because that was very, you know, that was a hot trilogy, you know, sort of in our circle, like, last year, sort of, I think it was tail end of 2021 maybe or
Yeah, that
2022.
sounds about right.
Yeah, like it got a bit better, or it sort of blew up. Um, and I let the dust settle on that, and I still didn't particularly enjoy it. Um, so maybe if I had read it when the hype was higher, maybe I would have liked it. But
Yeah.
it's one of those areas. I do like to try and see if I can um go into a book. Like I try not to go into books with like sort of preconceived ideas. I try to go into every book the same and try and have the same kind of outlook on it. Like a lot of the time I'm not gonna succeed at that. But if I try and do that, then try and give the book its fair shot, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I try to do the same thing. And I typically don't watch reviews of books before I've read them, even if they're non-spoiler. I actually
Hmm.
really enjoy watching people's non-spoiler reviews after I read a book, because it's difficult to construct a non-spoiler review and sell the book without giving anything away. And I like to see how other people try to do that. But I try to
Hmm.
stay away from a lot of content about specific books that I know I'm going to read for that exact reason. So
Hmm. Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
let's catch up on some comments here. We have
Yeah.
Derry, our good friend Derry.
Hi, Derek.
Um, Scavenging through building scraps pile. That sounds like a blast, kind of.
Yeah.
What were you
Hmm.
scavenging for, Derry? She also says permanent job sounds good.
Yeah.
Hooray for good things
It was.
happening. Yeah,
It was really good. Yeah.
that's
It's a
awesome, man. I'm
job that
happy for you.
thanks, man. Yeah, like it was a job. It's a job that I enjoy. I sort of enjoy as well. Like I say, enjoy. I don't downright hate it. So as long as I don't hate it, that's a win. That's a
Yeah.
100% a win. You know, the
Jake says, I
uh,
always find interviewing for the job you are already doing is so stupid. Like,
mhm.
interviewer, do you really think you will get better information from this interview than from the year's work?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things like they couldn't give me the job outright. like they had to advertise it, like so they had to make it public, and I had to interview for it. So it was more of a technicality. Like I think I was always kind of gonna get it, but they just had to go through that, and I had to interview for it. So you know, it was
Hey,
all
it all
good.
worked out
So
in the end.
it did, it did. Um,
Building scraps, Derry? Do you do carpentry? If Derry has another hidden talent that I'm unaware of, where she's light spoilers like the fool out there carving
yeah, it would
puppets.
fit. It would fit very well if she did
Um,
if she did carpentry.
oh
Um,
man, yeah, lumber is very expensive.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Michael's here. Michael says, I had to Zach Levine's Shogun. Decent book, but I'm not ready for the contract. Picked up Way of Dan.
That's good.
Oh
I,
man,
re- I really like that.
that is good. Have you read Way of Dan yet?
I haven't, no, I haven't read that
Okay.
yet. I need to get on it. I really do.
I've only read the first one so far.
Hmm.
Um Wavy Dan gives quite the insight into Philip's hidden darkness. That is true. It doesn't waste a lot of
Okay.
time doing it either.
Okay. That's
Um
that's intriguing. Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. I would say there's a hidden darkness to Philip for sure that comes out in his books, you know.
yeah, it's
Um,
funny. All right, we'll move on to the second part of the second quarter, which is do you think the NBA, the state of the NBA,
mhm,
is putting out a good product right now? So, we're fans, but we hear the players say this all the time. The NBA, at the end of the day, just like any other professional sports league, is a business. And the way they
mhm.
grow their business is to get more consumers. And so, are you enjoying watching games right now? Generally speaking, or is there some things that kind of irk you a little bit?
Um, yeah, I would say I'm enjoying what I'm watching. I think the game is definitely better from when I got into it. Like we're coming up to 10 years now. It's over 10 years now. Um, yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot more. It's a lot more fast paced, I would say. It feels more fast paced than it used to be because I don't watch a ton of basketball outside of the Bulls.
Okay.
Unless it's the playoffs, then I'll start watching it a bit. But I'll watch the Bulls, and I do. Yeah, I would say it's definitely a better product. The refereeing, I think, Jake, I pretty much all the guests have mentioned this. The refereeing is just, I don't know. I have issues with with the
Yeah.
referees. It's just it comes back to I watch. So I'm also a football fan. What I would call football, what you guys would call the S word for it. I can't physically say it because it hurts my soul every time I hear it. I'm like, no. I accept that's what you guys call it, and you can call it that, and I'm okay with it, but I can't say it,
I won't
unfortunately.
say it. I won't put you through that.
You can say it. You can say it. It's completely fine. Um, but it just hurts. It just hurts me to say it. Um, yeah. So, and the refereeing in football is uh dog shit. At the moment, it's very, very bad because we've introduced, like, I know official video refereeing has been a thing in the NBA for a while, or for a couple of years, I think. And we've just got it in football, and it's not being used right, and it's bad. So, um, but yeah, for basketball, like bad refereeing, I can't stand it. Like, also, the big thing for me is I think Jake mentioned this as well, is fouls at the rim. Like, and people, as soon as they feel any sort of contact, it's like it's arms up and it's, trying to get the free throw rather than trying to make the basket. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you should be trying to make the basket. You shouldn't be looking for a free throw, you know? Like
right.
that's a part of basketball that I hate, you know. Um, that's my big thing. That's my big issue. I think if they solved that, I would be a lot happier, you know,
Yeah.
with the NBA. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
I do know what you mean, and we'll get into potentially some suggestions on what we would like to see different
hmm
after the halftime show here. But
yeah.
Jake wants to know, hey RJ and Colin, how many players on the Bulls are better than Alex Caruso?
So,
I mean, overall,
yeah.
quite a
Um,
number, but defensively, nobody.
yeah, he's the best defensive player by a mile. Um, but I think there's a couple of better players than him. I would
Yeah.
say Kobe's generally better, I think,
Kobe
than
is really surprising me this year.
yeah, yeah, like he was a guy I was very high on him when we drafted him. I was
I
like,
bought
oh, this is gonna
this
be
the night that we drafted him.
nice. Yeah. Um I was I was very high on him when we drafted him, and then he started to play a bit, and like the last couple of years, he's been sort of up and down. I'm like, come on, you know, I need to see it. I need to see it. And this year, I think he's bringing it a lot more. So it's been
Yeah.
it's been good to see, and I think the Bulls, like I see potential in the Bulls. Like we definitely the pieces are there. The pieces are starting to form, I think, where we could have a decent team. But it's not quite there yet. And I
Yeah.
think if we added a couple more pieces, I don't know what those pieces would be, but I think if we added a couple more, like we could, there's a good chance that we could be a good playoff team, I think,
And get
at
Lonzo
the
Ball
very
back.
least. Yes, we need Lonzo Ball back. That'd
Um,
be that'd be good. Um,
hello, Alicia. How are you doing this
hi,
evening?
Alicia. Um,
Michael says, I wish we could take 4 steps back when I played basketball. Oh, man. That's funny.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that's realistic, though.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
So we're going to move on to the halftime show, my favorite part of the show. And
Nice.
we will, again, of course, start off with the book part of the question. So the halftime show
hmm
is the Mount Rushmore of authors and players. So we're going to start with authors. And again, kind of similar to the opening question, I'll leave it up to your discretion how you want to answer it. You can do your Mount Rushmore. So your top 4 of all time, top 4 in the NBA right now, top 4
hmm
Bulls, however you want to go with it. The ball is in your
Okay.
court.
All right. Okay. So, top four authors. I have thought about this, what I would say for this. So, in in terms of books, I would say it would be Pierce Brown, Robin Hobb, Cixin Liu.
Wow. Okay.
Um, who would be the fourth? Joe Abercrombie.
Okay. So
That's a
Pierce
that's
Brown,
a
Robin
mhm,
Hobb,
mhm,
Cecil Liu,
mhm.
and who was your fourth? Joe Abercrombie. That's right.
Joe Abercrombie. Yeah. Um, Pierce Brown. I think for obvious reasons. I love like I remember doing the top 10 stream like a couple of weeks ago, and that was the first like on that stream I realized that Red Rising is my favorite series ever. Like
Wow.
just talking about it, like in that moment, like there's just a moment where I just thought about it and I'm like, oh my God, this is my favorite series. It has to be. You know, I'm I'm so good. Like it's so good. Um, but Wall of Storms is still my favorite book of all time. Not series. Series is different.
Okay, that's
Um,
fair.
so not the book Red Rising, the series Red Rising. Um, Robin Hobb has probably been the most impactful author because I didn't realize that you could write a book like that and just have a character so well developed that I feel like I know fits better than members of my own family. Like that's how impactful he's been to me. Um, Cixin Liu, I've put on there. Cixin Liu, for anyone who doesn't know, wrote the Three Body Problem, the Remembers vs. Past trilogy. I think that's what he's most famous for. And he just he opened a door for me in terms of sci-fi and realizing how much I love hard science fiction. You know, like Three Body Problem in itself is a great book. And then you read Dark Forest, and Dark Forest is even better. And then the ending of Dark Forest leaves you staring at the ceiling for 15 minutes, contemplating your own existence in the universe. And then Death's End will just blow your mind completely. Like, so the stuff that happens in Death's End is just so fucking mad that you're just like, how did we get here? Like, from where we are in Three Body Problem, how are we here? How have we got this far? Like, it's insane. It's
I will be
absolutely insane.
starting the Three Body Problem, I think, at some point this year. It's a tentative
Hmm.
plan, but I own the first book.
Yeah.
So,
Um, so yeah, it's what I'll say about Three Body Problem is if you're expecting characters, don't.
okay.
Characters are just the characters are just not they're not great in Three Body Problem. It is very much about the ideas and the things that Seishin Liu wants to do. Um, I will recommend if you want a taste of Seishin Liu, and sort of not I can't say his writing because it's translated and there are different translators for all the books. Um, for his ideas and sort of what concepts and themes he talks about, I would recommend Advanced Dinosaurs by him. It's a novella. I think it's called something different in North America. I think it's
Okay.
called the Cretaceous Past. The Cretaceous Past is called in the US. Um, it's basically a thought experiment of what if ants and dinosaurs had human level intelligence and decided to create civilizations and how that would look and how they would coexist. It's fascinating. It
Of
it
ants and
really is.
dinosaurs, is that it?
Yeah, yeah, mhm,
Okay, I see the cover. Okay, I just looked it up on Google.
yeah. It's incredible. Like it's only like 100 something pages, I think.
Okay.
So it's not that long. The opening like 20, 30 pages, they read almost like a nature documentary,
Oh,
is how I
wow.
would describe it. Yeah.
Huh.
So there's no human characters in this. It is all ants and dinosaurs.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and you go and that's definitely a book where the characters are not a thing. Like they make the characters in Three Body Problem look well developed, compared to these ones, because you're just jumping through time and
That's
you
great.
can't get attached. You can't get attached to characters in that novella, but it is absolutely fascinating, and he touches on a couple of the themes that he touches on in Three Body Problem, or particularly books 2 and 3, but done in a different way because it's a different sort of scenario and he's looking at
Okay.
them from a different angle. you know.
Derry brought up an interesting point. That makes your top
Mhm.
authors a hell of an electric mix.
Yeah.
Best characters
Hmm.
and no characters. That is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. That's how I go. I just like I will like things like very like on opposite ends of the spectrum. Like music is very much the same as well. Like I'll like completely random stuff, and you're like, how can two people like these two things? I'm like, I don't know. That's just how I roll.
That's really
Um,
cool though.
mhm. I think so. It keeps things interesting for me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, freshens things up. Um, so for Joe Abercrombie, the reason why I put Joe Abercrombie on there is that he's he might be my favorite author alongside Pierce Brown. It's kind of a whatever day you ask me on, it could be either one of those four authors. Like, you know, you'll get a different answer, like whatever day you ask me. Um, but Abercrombie, like his sense of humor is just hilarious. Like he's so funny.
That's a
He's
series I'm definitely like that one is sharpied in. Like I am definitely starting Joe Abercrombie this year.
mm,
Maybe soon. Because I need to I've had the first trilogy on my shelf for a year and a half. And I have this thing where I'll buy books that I in series, even like full series, that I almost am 100% certain I'm going to love. And then I keep putting them off because in my head, I'm like, I know I'm going to love it. I'll get to it. And when I do, I'll still enjoy it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but for some reason, there's multiple series I own that I know I'm going to love that I just keep putting off. And that is one of them. So,
mm, yeah. I think you're gonna like it. I I do. I think you'll enjoy it. Um, I know people have said this is a common thing with the Blade itself. I know people say there's no plot, and I'm like, no, but there is though. There's kind of plot, but it's not overarching plot, if that
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
trust Joe
there is,
Abercrombie to get me there.
yeah, there's stuff happening, but you're not exactly sure why just yet.
That's a
It'll
great
all make
sales pitch.
sense, you know. It'll all make sense eventually, but it
RJ gets a blurb on the back. There's stuff happening. You just don't know what yet. I
yeah,
love that.
there's stuff happening.
That's amazing.
That's
Okay,
that's
so
that's my best that's my best quote. I I like that. I'll
I
put that
I
on my
might get that.
tombstone.
Let's move on to basketball players. So, did you think about how you want to
Okay.
answer this? Are you going to do all time? Or are you going to do Bulls players? Are you going to do currently in the league? What are you thinking?
Um, I'm just gonna do um four players that I'm decided to do this by players that I've watched like
Okay,
a lot of because I'm not gonna go off players that I haven't watched. Like I could put Michael Jordan and all those kind of players on the list, but I haven't seen a lot of them, so I decided not to put them on.
I like
Um,
that.
so so the four players, um, Dirk Nowitzki would be would be the first choice. I don't know why. He's just I love watching him play. Um, number two would be it's I think the three of these will be Bulls players. The second one is Joakim Noah. I love
Okay.
I loved him. Like he was my favorite Bulls player once when I got into Bulls with that lineup of Rose, Butler,
Oh man.
well we had Mike Dunleavy Jr. in at that
Yep.
time. I think it was Dunleavy
Luol
Jr.
Dang.
Luol Deng, Joakim Noah. It was it was a good time. It was a really
Yes.
good time. Um, so um, so I say Joakim Noah number two. Number three is the most random pick
Okay.
ever. Is the most. I don't know if anyone outside of Bulls fans would know him a lot. Number three, for some reason, I loved Kirk Heinrich. For some reason, I loved watching Kirk Heinrich. It was
Captain
just
Kirk.
Captain Kirk. That was my guy for some reason. At 16, I was like, I love watching this guy play. I can't tell you why, because looking back on it now, like he's a good player, but why would you have him in a Mount Rushmore? But I just loved watching him play.
He
I
was
really did.
he was a very slept on defender. He was a very good
He
defender.
really was, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um, and number four, this is a tough one. Ben Wallace.
Great
I'll say Ben
choice.
Wallace. Great, unreal defender. Like just that was another team. That 2004 Pistons with Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace. That was I love I love watching I love watching that team. Just seeing highlights of them was
Oh yeah.
brilliant.
Chauncey Billups is one of, if not maybe, my favorite point guard of all time. Couldn't tell you why. It was very similar to your Kirk Heinrich. Like when I was really
Yeah.
young, I just loved Chauncey Billups and that whole Detroit
Mhm.
team. Like Rip Hamilton and Prince, um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and Rashid and Ben. Like that was just a fun team to
It
watch.
was. Hmm. For sure, yeah. I think there'd be other players I could put on here. Clay Thompson I could probably put on here. Like
Okay.
I really like Clay Thompson. Um, who else could I put on this list? Another random pick, but Carlos Boozer, particularly Utah
Oh yeah.
Jazz, Carlos Boozer, I would put on there. Um, so yeah, um, I just think from there. I mean, but
There's got yeah.
my Rushmore of football. Those are some interesting picks. I'll have to say. Steven Gerrard, no. Um, Ryan Giggs, absolutely. I'm named after Ryan Giggs. So, um, Paul Gascoigne, yeah, and Luka Modric, yeah. That's a good
I
that's a
know
good
who
Mount
Luka
Rushmore of
Modric is.
football.
I know who Luka is.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
Uh, I'll give
Most
my
enjoyable.
yeah, enjoyable RJ, enjoyable. Yeah. So my Mount Rushmore, I'll give it quickly here just for Derry. Um, again, these names might not mean anything to you, Colin, but right. So I would put Ryan Giggs as well. Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes. Um, who else I put on there? Uh, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. Um, Edwin van der Sar. That's my. They're all Manchester United players. I'm a big
Actually
Manchester
never heard of
United
him.
fan. Yeah, I'd be surprised. Yeah, I'm not shocked. But there you go. Oh, Derry called it basic. God damn it.
She's calling you out. Michael
She's
says you're
calling me
missing the
out.
white mamba.
Yeah.
This is tough. That's why I like to leave it open to interpretation because this is like an impossible question to answer, but I think it's fun to think about.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Schoolsy is always an
Schulze.
honorable mention for me. Nice. Yeah. Paul Scholes. Basically, Paul Scholes was that kind of player. He's the kind of player that he was never flashy, but did the basic things like to an insane level. That's
Okay.
how I would describe him. Um, he's my favorite player, like ever. Just
Jake says, well, his basketball Mount Rushmore was very nice. That is the most eclectic Mount Rushmore I've had
yeah,
so far, and I loved it. I loved it.
that's good.
Joakim
That's
Noah.
good.
I did not have Joakim Noah and Kirk Heinrich on my bingo card or Ben Wallace, but I love it.
Yeah, I decided to change it up, you know, because you hear the same Mount Rushmore all the time. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
let's go for different. Like it's purely personal, like 100%. Like there are far better players than all of those, but those are the four that I just love. I
that's
just love
your Mount
watching.
Rushmore.
Yeah,
What a great
yeah.
halftime show. We are gonna start to get into the third quarter here. So we've had our halftime meeting in the locker room. We've got half a game under our belts. Um, do you plan on switching up any of your reading plans? Do you need to make some adjustments, or are you happy with where you're at? What do you got planned on the reading on the books horizon?
Um, so I'm trying to branch out. Like last year, I tried to branch out, and I think I succeeded a little bit. But this year, I think is the year I'm really going to start to, you know, go for it and really branch out. Like there's so many genres. Like I look at other genres and I'm like, there's a series or there's a book that I really want to read from that genre. Like sci-fi is a big thing I want to get into this year. Sort of I've realized I like the harder sci-fi, so I would love to read Arthur C. Clarke, and I would like to get into Asimov. I might try that. Um, Other authors, there's some newer authors like Peter F. Hamilton, who's read. I have it here. It's called the Commonwealth Saga. It's like a duology, and
Okay.
these books are like they're thick. Like these
Wow.
are like 1,100 pages each. Um, so I'd love to read that. That's probably the biggest priority for me this year is to read Commonwealth. Um, so that's just in terms of sci-fi. Alistair Reynolds as well. I would love to get into, Pushing Ice, House of Suns, Revolution Space. In terms of fantasy, um, Anthony Ryan obviously is a big one. Um, so other authors, Mark Lawrence, I would like to finally read
Yeah, I've never read
because,
Mark Lawrence either.
um, yeah, Mark Lawrence is one of those authors I haven't read. I've had Red Sister for God knows how long. Um, and then I found out that all of his fantasy series are connected. Um, so I really want to start with Broken Empire, Prince of Thorns. So I'll probably start there.
Is that the
Um,
recommended starting place for his works?
I think so, yeah. Well, I think you can read any of his works basically. I think Broken Empire you can read on its own. Red Queen's War you can read on its own. I know those two are connected. Um, they take place in the same world at roughly the same time.
Okay.
Um, Book of the Ancestor you can read on its own, so that's Red Sister, Grey Sister. Book of the Ice, I think, is a sequel series, so to Book of the Ancestor. So I think that's one you can't read before you read Book of the Ancestor. And apparently that's where a lot of the connections come in for his
Okay.
world. I know I'm pretty sure that's where. But I don't think they're like necessary. They're just like cool things. Um, so um, I know Jake's saying I don't think they are connected, but they aren't connected to each other. But I could be. I think I heard that somewhere. I think that was I think it was Thiago Abdallah. I think said
Okay.
he mentioned that, and he's a big Mark Lawrence fan. But I
If
think he
anybody in the
mentioned
chat
that.
knows, then let us know.
Yeah, I could just be spouting out complete nonsense. Um, so it's not unusual for me, but I think that's true. I think I believe that it's true. So so
Well,
there
the
you
old
go.
the old
Um,
Google machine could answer that because that's just another person from the internet that we should just believe, right? Just like all of us here.
yeah.
Jake says, so RJ,
What's
speaking of plans, you started Tigana a while ago and really like to start. Any
yeah.
update on that?
Mhm. Um, hold on, Jake. Um, damn it, I'm missing um the gadget from Men in Black. Damn it, I'm missing that. Um, it's one of those books that I've tried and I've lost momentum on. I say this with a lot of books. I will get back to it. I will. Okay, I promise. I promise I'll get back to it. Um, but yeah, I really like the start of Tigana. Tigana's it really it did connect with me in a way. I will just forget for my own sanity. That's probably for the best. If you just forget that I started Tigana, that'd be fantastic. Um, but yeah, so GGK is one of those authors that I really want to get into, but can't seem to get the momentum on. So I'll probably, this will be the sort of this year will be the last sort of big attempt to get into GGK. Um, yeah, there's other genres that I really want to get into. Crime thrillers is one of those. I seen Carlos and Yolanda's video on crime fiction, which is it's genuinely brilliant, and I can only ever dream of ever making a video that good. Um,
I haven't watched that one
that
yet.
it's a really good video. I would definitely recommend it if you are looking to get into like crime thrillers, stuff like that, because they go into like the different subgenres and they like recommend if you're looking for something maybe more atmospheric or whatever you're looking for, they have a lot of really good recommendations. Um, so I'm reading Don Winslow, obviously.
Yep.
Yolanda's a very big fan of Don Winslow, so I have to read Power of the Dog at some point this year. Um, I have another trilogy called the Lewis trilogy by Peter May, which is like it's set in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. So it's just
Oh
these
wow.
islands and apparently it's like really dark and it's very atmospheric. Um, there's another series that's like that that's quite atmospheric. I think it's called the Dark Iceland series by Ragnar Jonasson or something like that. I don't know. Um, so that's so looking to get into crime fiction, thrillers, that kind of thing, and also historical fiction. That's another big one. Um, the the Wolf Hall trilogy by Hilary Mantel. I
I've
really
heard
want to
that
get into
author's
that.
name.
Yeah, so she wrote. It's the Wolf Hall series is about. It's set during the reign of Henry VIII, and it's about his chief advisor, whose name I'm forgetting, Thomas Cromwell, I think that's the
Okay.
guy's name, and he was advisor to Henry VIII, and it's basically a trilogy about him following his life. Um,
That sounds really interesting, actually.
yeah, yeah, it sounds really good. The BBC made a series on it a few years ago, and it has your guy Damian Lewis, I think, and he's been in a few things. I
So you've
can't
got
remember what.
a lot of plans, a lot of
Yeah,
adjustments, so to say.
yeah, this is all just stuff I'm throwing in the air and seeing what happens. I may generally read none of this and just reread Red Rising all year. That's also very much possible. So this is just the
Well,
ramblings of a madman at this point. Like
that's
I'm
so
just
funny.
spouting off nonsense
Read what you
to
want to
make
read.
myself sound more intelligent.
Michael says, I just read Wickwire Watch and think the Riverfall Chronicles is going to be a top 10. I've been seeing this is one of those books I've been seeing more and more about recently.
Okay.
Um, I don't know anything about it at all, but I guess that's a lie. The only thing I know is that Derry said I've yet to hear a negative thing about Wickwire, and that's the
Mhm.
same. I've not seen anybody say they dislike it. So must be another one that I need to look up and potentially add to the ever growing list of books that I hopefully will get to. Um,
Yeah. No, I was just looking it up and I've definitely seen that cover.
Yeah, it's becoming pretty
Yeah.
popular in our when I say popular, I mean in our sub
Mhm.
community of booktube. So, um interesting. Very interesting. You've got potentially a lot of adjustments and plans for reading that may or may not
Mhm.
pan out, and that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we're gonna
Um,
move
you
on
hold on
next.
2 seconds. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
my phone's at 10%, so
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm gonna plug it in like real quick. So
You're good. Take your time.
just give me 2 seconds and I'll be back.
Sounds good. I'll go back to some of these comments. Derry mentioned Carlos and Yolanda. I'm sure if any of you guys are here, you probably already know about Carlos and Yolanda, but if you do not, go and check them out. StoryTube is their channel here on YouTube, and they are just a blast. They are a couple that makes videos together, and I could not recommend their channel enough. They are probably the channel that I've audibly laughed the most while watching. Um, so highly, highly recommend. Yeah, Derry says popular in our niche corner of the niche corner of the niche hobby. Yes. So I use the word popular very loosely in this specific scenario, but to us, it's popular. Uh, Alicia says something that will probably break Jake Bishop's heart a little bit, but GGK's writing does not work for her. I have yet to try GGK, and I'm going to watch Jake's famous where you could start with GGK video and make a decision on where I will eventually start with GGK. So, um,
Yeah.
let's move
You
on.
still hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I still
Yep.
look good. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep. You look
That's great.
fantastic. Um, we'll move on. We kind of touched on this, and that usually happens in the second quarter. But do you think
Hmm.
basketball needs to make any changes to make it more enjoyable, more fair, more engaging for the fans? And if so, do you have any recommended solutions that we can? I'll just call Adam Silver up after this because I have him on speed dial, and
Nice.
I'll just let him know what RJ Gibson thinks we should do for the
Yeah.
NBA.
Um, yeah. Um, I don't know, to be honest. Even though I've watched like a fair amount of basketball, I don't feel like I'm that knowledgeable on it for some reason. So I don't feel confident in what I would change because what I would, because there's a thing like I'm like being Irish and then, talking about an American sport, like how I would view basketball would be quite different to how I feel like in a way. If does that make sense?
Yeah, that kind of
You
makes
know?
sense, but I mean, you are a fan and you do watch a decent
Yeah.
amount of basketball, so
Hmm.
um, I know we talked
Yeah.
about the fouls, and that's a difficult one
Hmm.
because I'm not quite sure how we always end up talking about the fouls, and it's a frustrating thing because not only do certain players not get certain foul calls regularly like the Stars do,
Hmm.
but I will say this too, and it's something that I've noticed is even night to night, different officiating crews officiate the games differently. So, for
Hmm.
those of you that don't know, I was in Cleveland last night. I went to Cleveland with my family to watch the Bulls get smoked um, in person. So we got to see them get smoked in person this time. But it was such a bizarre game because it seemed like there was two different themes going on. And this wasn't one sided. It was for both teams, but they were letting tons of things go, but they were also
Hmm.
calling really ticky-tacky reach-in fouls at the perimeter. So I don't understand how a player is supposed to adjust their game to that type of because when you drive to the lane and you're not getting the call, then what do you pull it out? And if you're not hitting your shots, then you're just kind of stuck. And then how do you defend a player? Like you can't reach or make contact at all. So the consistency in my opinion is always the biggest frustration as a fan watching it.
Yeah. I would I would say this. Um, I would like there to be them to introduce some sort of contact in basketball in some way. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't know. I think if you allowed some sort of contact, it would make the game, maybe it would make the game more interesting. Again, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's it might be more interesting, but then it might be worse. Like if you
Yeah,
allowed some contact, but
uh,
not not a lot, you know?
Drew says making sporting events affordable to go to again. Tailor the game and experience for the everyday person and not celebrities.
Hmm.
This is interesting.
That
This has not been brought up before.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. So how much would you pay to go to like an NBA game, like typically?
That's a difficult question to answer because
Hmm.
it depends who you're going to see. It depends
Okay.
where you're sitting. It depends what team is coming to town because all of that gets factored into the ticket cost. Like if LeBron is coming to town, you're paying more because seats are going to fill up.
Hmm.
But I'll just go to SeatGeek real quick and I'll see what the next Chicago Bulls game would cost to go see, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, because I don't know. Like, is it affordable? Is it that affordable to go see Bulls games like regularly? Like if you lived in Chicago, I wonder would that be?
So so for the Raptors versus Bulls, this is the next game. It's gonna be in Scotiabank Arena, so it'll be
Hmm.
in Canada. Up top, high seats like the balcony 300 section are about 45 to 50 US dollars.
Okay.
So that's not horrible, but you're also
No.
way up tall.
Hmm.
Way up. You're not factoring in yet driving there if you don't live there. You're not factoring in having to buy food. You're not factoring in gas money if you're staying there, a hotel. So the actual ticket is not a bank breaker, but if you're doing any of the other stuff, it's you've got to like I mean, personally, I we would have to save up. I mean, we got the tickets for the game yesterday for a Christmas gift. So like I didn't purchase them.
Okay.
Um
Um, yeah, that doesn't seem. I don't know. That doesn't seem too bad. I've been deliberate. I deliberated for a while going to the because sometimes the NBA they'll do a game in like London or something like that, and I've considered going. Like this year they have a game in Paris,
yep.
so that would be something I would like to go to. Um, but definitely um, if I ever go to America, that's I'm going to an NBA game because I want to experience that because it just seems like a really interesting from the perspective of someone from Ireland, like it does seem like a very weird kind of thing, just sort of the presentation of it all. I would love to experience that, you
It's
know.
really cool. I mean, even though we lost last
Hmm.
night, it's just there's something to be said. And I'm sure it's similar with football, American
Hmm.
football, hockey, anything you go watch. Just
Yeah,
you said about seeing these athletes perform in person and not on the screen. Just real quickly for context, the Lakers versus Bulls. So two again in the standings, very mid-tier teams. At
hmm,
crypto.com, this would be in Los Angeles. The same 300 level tickets are
yeah,
100 I see 115 to 125, $26. So for those same tickets,
okay,
it's almost triple the price. So and
yeah,
again, it
that's
depends where you're at, who you're seeing, all that stuff matters and gets factored in. So
hmm, yeah. But that's the thing. Yeah, definitely. I agree with Drew there. I think if you're making sports more affordable, like any kind of sports games, I think that's a very big positive. you know?
Drew also said
Yeah,
managers should be allowed to put a hand on the player with the ball, like a hand on their back used to be allowed, but not anymore.
yeah, that's what I would like
So
to see.
the
Yeah,
offensive
something like
player
that.
gets basically every advantage uh,
Yeah.
they possibly can, and they've made some changes to that recently, like flopping and sticking a leg out on 3-point shots is now an offensive foul if the refs deem it to be.
Hmm.
But I think the reason that I don't know if they would allow more contact and make some of these changes is because ultimately, if you're not really a true basketball fan, like watching the X's and O's of what's going on in the chess game, people just want to
Hmm.
see people score. They want to see dunks. They want to
Yeah.
see 3 pointers. Like they want to see high scoring games. And I think the NBA kind of tailors their rules to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. um, yeah, so I would let's see this. What
Oh,
would
that
Paul
would have been a
Pierce's
really
ranking?
awesome game to be at.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be again going back to that Mount Rushmore. Like that's another one of the big list of players that I would have on there. Would be Paul
All
Pierce. Any of that Boston three, like Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Jason Terry, like any of those three, the three that went to Brooklyn, I would take any of those.
um, yeah, I love your Mount Rushmore. I think you should keep it the way it is.
Yeah, it's it's a good one.
All right, we're gonna work our way to the fourth quarter. Things are winding down, and so for the fourth quarter, again, we'll start with the book answer. After all this
Hmm.
time of reading, in a world where we have just myriad ways to enjoy things with movies and streaming and gaming and Twitch, YouTube, music, streaming services, whatever it may be. What keeps you coming
Hmm.
back to reading books?
Um, for me, reading books is just it. It's for me. It's the most personal experience that I think you can have with any piece of media. Because when I'm reading a book, it feels like there's nothing else. It's just me and the book, just me and the author, and also, your imagination can sort of run wild at times. When you're reading a book, like you're picturing something, and that's like you're the only person who will ever visualize something in a book the way that you do. And that's why I think for me it's very, very personal, you know, just reading it. And I think since reading Robin Hobb, I've realized, that there are authors out there that can make you feel for characters, emotionally in a very different way that a TV show can, or a film can, or a video game can. You know, it's to me it is very personal, and I can, and it's the biggest like emotional reactions I've gotten to out of any form of media would be books. Like um yeah. I just I don't know. I just love reading. Like it's
I
yeah.
think you kind of hit the nail on the head because it's similar for
Hmm.
me. The main difference between anything else that I mentioned in reading is that, you know, the story and the appearances of characters and the appearances of the world and all of that stuff are being decided by somebody else's imagination and being portrayed to you. And when you just have the words on a page, man, it's all the author's ability to be able to paint that mental picture, and it makes it feel like it's mine. Like this is my enjoyment. This is the way I call and picture the story in my head. And sometimes watching an adaptation of a series or book that I really love kind of bums me out because then I can't unsee that, you know? Like
Hmm.
I had watched The Lord of the Rings long before I ever read the books. And when I read the books finally, I already had like I knew what Rivendell looked like. I knew what Hobbiton looked like. I knew what all the characters like I had that in my head already. So I didn't get to create that with that series.
Hmm. Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings is just one of the few one of the few books where like the films completely dominate like what you see on the page. Like unless you've never seen the films, like like you when I've read a bit of Lord of the Rings, like any character like when I was reading about Frodo, all I saw was, Elijah Wood.
Same.
And, when I was reading about Gandalf, Sir Sir Ian McKellen, that's who immediately came into my head. So I think Lord of the Rings, is very much different in that case. But I love just like reading a series and then picturing a character, and then people do fan art of the characters, and then you're like, this is not like how I pictured them at all. Like I don't know
Yeah.
where you're getting this, but it's like the Faithful and the Fallen thing where one of the characters, Macwin, people keep saying that he's bald, and I'm like, where are you guys getting this out of? I don't picture him as bald. John Gwynn doesn't picture him as bald, so where are you getting this from? Like, I don't know.
Derek
Um,
brought up something interesting. He said, I've been
yeah.
finding that illustrated editions can help erase some of that adaptation imagery. And I did get the Alan Lee illustrated Lord of the Rings editions, which I did
Hmm.
read out of. And that did kind of help because it provided me a different visual for all those characters that was pretty different than how the movies ended up portraying them.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the illustrations. I know there's illustrations that exist of Lord of the Rings before the Peter Jackson films came out, and I would like to see them. I need to look them up, um, just to see how those characters looked before those films.
Yeah.
You know,
Harry said Lord of the
um,
Rings is tricky too. They use the illustrators famous for Lord of the Rings imagery before the film as art directors for them. So there's obviously inspiration there as well.
okay.
Precisely, Alan Lee's imagery is already such a pillar of the world of Middle Earth. Yeah. Yeah, it made it feel more personal, kind of like what Derek was talking about.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, like Lord of the Rings. I've not read Lord of the Rings like all the way through. But the films are like those are. If you ask me what my three favorite films are of all time, it's Return of the King, um, Fellowship of the Ring, and The Two Towers. That's one, two, and three
wow,
for me. It's I love those films so much.
I
There's
could
just
rewatch them at any time.
yeah, same. I could I could just watch them and I'm just like, this is this is brilliant. Um, I think that's what sparked the interest in fantasy for me because I watched those films for the first time in like 2018, I think. So I think that's what gave me that initial. That's where the spark came from. I think looking back on it, you
That's
know,
really cool.
um, yeah. So I don't know why I didn't just immediately go up and pick up Lord of the Rings, but I
Do
will
you have
eventually read
plans
the
to
whole
read
thing.
it? Okay. Yeah.
I will read it someday. I don't know when that'll be. It could be this year, it could be 10 years from now. Who knows?
Oh, that's funny. All
Yeah.
right. Well, second part of the question is what keeps you coming back to
Hmm.
basketball? And I've had a couple people take this question a little differently too. You could
Hmm.
talk about what keeps you coming back to sports just as a fan, what keeps you coming back to
Hmm.
basketball specifically. So, how do
So,
you want to answer this one?
basketball specifically, what keeps me coming back to basketball is the probably childish hope that eventually the Bulls will win an NBA championship. That's what keeps me coming back. I
Ooh,
I,
you
I
and me
don't
both,
know.
brother.
Yeah, I think it'll happen at some point in the next 10 to 15 years, I think we will win one. Like, I'm putting it out there now, I think we will. But
You heard it here
I don't
first.
know. Yeah, yeah. I don't think we're never going to go on another Michael Jordan era run. That'll never happen again. I don't think that'll ever happen again in the NBA, to be honest. Like a run like that, like I don't think
There's
that'll ever
there's too
happen
much
again.
talent across the league now, and just nobody that was quite so single-minded as Michael Jordan and that team were.
Yeah. God damn it, I forgot about Scottie Pippen. I would have put him on my Mount Rushmore. God damn it.
And okay,
That's
who would
another
you switch him out for?
one. See, that's the thing I don't know. Ben Wallace probably.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. This stream has just evolved into me making the Mount Rushmore and then immediately just regretting it. Just like
That's what makes it
just like
fun.
oh yeah. Um so
I
yeah.
think Derry
So
touched on a good point. It could always be next season. All the fans live in hope. I'll just take it back to, because I know you experienced this too. That first
yeah.
year after we assembled this team, where we were first
Yeah.
in the East for a little bit, and I knew it wasn't going to
hmm
last, but man, it just felt like for the first time in a really long time, it felt like I genuinely just thought the Bulls were going to win games
Yeah.
every time they stepped on the
hmm
court. And those magical moments of DeRozan hitting those like back-to-back buzzer beaters, and like that's just magical. And you don't get that if you're just a general fan. I feel like you only can get that if you're a fan of a specific team and you've been through the ups and downs and the rebuilds and the failed signings and the successful signings and whatever it
hmm
may be.
Yeah. Um yeah, like I remember I was watching a lot of highlights of those games back in the Jim Boylan era. Like I remember when we hired Boylan after Hoiberg. Is it Hoiberg? Fred Hoiberg?
Yeah.
Was that
Yep.
his name? Yeah. Um, I was like, okay, this guy's been like he was assistant with Popovich and all, so I thought like, okay, this guy he could be good. And then after a week, and the players are like, we're going to boycott training. I remember just sitting there, just being like, oh, this is going to be long, and this is going to be painful.
That
And
like
just
he had no control over that team. I remember. I don't know. You might not remember this game, but there was a game we played in Charlotte. I think it was Levine's uh,
Mhm.
career high. I think he had 51.
I remember this.
And
Yeah,
okay, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, there was just like
yeah.
a like Levine literally like looked over to the bench at one point and was just like, "I'm not doing that. Like, give me the ball."
Oh, it was just
You don't want that.
yeah. And I'm just like, I loved it. In some ways, I loved watching the press conferences with Boylan because at one point they were fucking hilarious
Oh yeah.
because he would just say shit. I'm just like, why are you saying this? And then I remembered that, oh, this is the head coach of the team that I support. Oh my
It was a
God.
joke.
It was a joke. Like like I can't remember I just remember this one question some boy asked him. I can't remember who the player was. I think it was Denzel Valentine. It was
Oh my
this random
gosh.
game why he had left him out, and he said because I said so. I was just like, oh, this is not good. This is not good at all.
No.
Oh,
But I will say I knew this would divulge into two Bulls fans talking about Bulls basketball at some point, but this is why I will always love Zach LaVine. Even though he
yeah,
frustrates the crap out of me, he stuck with us through some
he did.
horrible years, and he played
Yeah,
so well that he forced the owners of this team to try to make something of this team. And even if it doesn't work out and we
hmm
trade him, he at least forced them to try to do something, and we are back to being mediocre again. And that's because Levine played so well.
Yeah. I think it's also because I think it feels more disappointing now because there was hope because we had brought in DeRozan. We thought that'd be good for Levine, and the team was starting to form, and we thought we're not mediocre anymore. We're coming up there, and then it's just not worked out, and so
Yeah.
we're back down again. So I think that's why there's there's a feeling of you know I don't know, sort of things are people are more a bit dejected by what's going on
Yeah.
because there was hope. I mean, again, during Jim Boylan, there was no hope anywhere to be
Yeah.
found within 50 miles of Chicago. There was nothing to, there was nothing there. So when you expect nothing, you might be pleasantly surprised by what's, by if we do win a game. I remember that blowout to Boston. Like I remember that game so
Oh,
vividly, and I was just like, what am I doing here? Why am I watching this? Um,
my at the time girlfriend, now wife,
mhm,
would ask me all the time because that was during the Jim Boylan era. Why do you watch
yeah.
these games? And I'm like, every once in a while, babe, like we just get a game where it's so exciting. And then like a few days after that, we were playing rummy, we were playing cards with each other
hmm
at her dad's house, and I had my phone up. We didn't even have NBA League Pass at the time, so I was watching
hmm
some like janky Reddit stream, and it was the Charlotte game that Levine put
Okay.
up 51.
Yeah.
I was like, this is why I
Yeah.
watch.
This is why we watch it. And then, but I also say to myself, I could be my brother because my brother's also kind of a basketball fan. And for some reason, I don't know what possessed him. He's a Hornets fan, and I'm like,
Oh,
that's that's just eternal pain, pretty
oh,
much. That's
honestly,
that's
like
not good.
you see the memes where like Michael Jordan suits up for the Charlotte. Like he would be better
Yeah.
than a lot of players on that team right now.
hmm
Probably.
Like he was watching it like 2016, 2017, that era
Oh
of the
no.
Hornets, which is just oh no. Like Nick Batum, like Hornets Nick Batum. Oh, that's I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. That's just
Uh,
awful. It's bad.
well, we've been droning on for a little over an hour and a half now, so
Mhm.
uh
Yeah,
I want to just take a second to thank you, RJ, for coming on. I had a blast. I always have a blast talking about books and
yeah.
basketball, and I want to thank everybody in the chat too that showed up to make this. Of course, we have some people coming in now.
The lads,
Now that
I
we're
guess.
calling it a day here, but we started a bit early.
Yeah.
So if you guys missed it,
hmm
hop back on in the recast and you can watch us drone on about books and basketball for an hour and 45 minutes.
hmm
So, RJ, do you want to
Yeah.
let these lovely people know where they can find you trying to read books at?
Um. You can see in your local park bench. You see just that mad guy just rambling to himself. That's me. If you're too scared to come say hi when I'm there, you can follow me like on Twitter or something. Um, let's see, I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Discord as well. If you're on Discord, I run the Grimoire um, Discord, so you can find me there as well.
And your YouTube
Um,
channel.
on my YouTube channel, sorry, I forgot about the YouTube channel for there for a minute. I try and read books on there, you know. I also DNF a lot. That's the legacy I leave behind is me DNFing books, you know. people say I should embrace the DNF and more, but I think two DNF predictions videos is I think I've embraced it.
I love your DNF predictions.
They're so fun for me to make because it is just me being, it's just me taking the piss. You know, it's they're not serious at all, and they're not meant to be taken seriously. Like
Uh,
Alex from Tall Guy Reads, he just suggested it to me as a joke because he's seen everyone doing 5-star predictions. It was just like, you should do DNF predictions. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do it, and I did it, and it was hilarious.
that's
I
amazing. If you guys haven't watched those videos, even if they're older, please go and watch them because they're just hilarious.
Yeah,
So,
I love how the first book in the first video is The Darkness That Comes Before, and that's one of my favorite books of all time now. So it's even more funny
uh,
now.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, RJ, thank you so much for making my evening and your nighttime hopefully a little bit more fun. It was great
Yeah,
to
this
have you on the
was
channel. This is our first time collaborating.
yeah, it feels like we've known each other for so long, and then like this is the first time we're talking like this, and it's crazy that it's taken us this long, but yeah, I've had a really good time. This is my first stream in a fucking long time. Um, I can't remember the last stream that I did on someone else's channel. Um, but yeah, this has been it's so much fun. I've
Well, I'm
really
glad
enjoyed it.
you were available for a chat tonight. If you guys don't know RJ, he's an awesome guy. You can find him lurking in discords and park benches across the world, apparently. And check out his YouTube channel for me. And again, thank you guys all for being here. I will let you guys know when my next video is coming out, when another Books and Basketball is coming out. But for now, I hope you guys are all enjoying what you're currently reading. Thank you for being here. And remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.